The island of La Gomera, sitting off the coast of Africa in the Canary Archipelago, is a violently vertical place. Deep, jagged ravines called barrancos radiate from the center of the island outward, carving the landscape into isolated segments. Because of this topography, two people standing on opposite ridges can easily see each other. But to actually cross that gap, you're looking at hours of arduous hiking, down into the gorge and all the way back up again. You can't simply shout across the void either. The human voice relies on low-frequency sound waves. Over a few hundred meters, those waves scatter in the wind and dissipate against the vast open air. For the indigenous Guanches, and later the Spanish settlers who farmed these slopes, extreme isolation was a constant physical danger. Being cut off from your neighbors in such a harsh environment meant a minor accident or a sudden fire could easily turn fatal. Instead of surrendering to the isolating geography, the inhabitants learned to repurpose the physics of sound to survive, turning the landscape itself into a telecommunications network. They achieved this through whistling. A trained whistler, or silbador, inserts their fingers tightly into their mouth to create rigid lateral chambers. This physical lock allows them to expel air at an immense 130 decibels, the acoustic equivalent of standing next to a jackhammer. This diagram shows the real physical challenge here, compressing spoken Spanish into a whistle. Normal speech utilizes a complex, multi-layered mix of acoustic frequencies. To whistle a word, a silbador collapses all that chaotic data into a single narrow frequency band between 1 and 3,000 hertz. If we look closely at this single line of sound, we can see exactly how the phonetics are mapped. Vowels become sustained horizontal pitch bands, high for an E, low for an A. Meanwhile, the 22 Spanish consonants are compressed into rapid spikes, sudden drops, and sharp interruptions of the breath. Because several consonants share the exact same whistle shape, the resulting signal is often ambiguous. It takes years of intense physical practice to generate these tones accurately, and the recipient relies heavily on context to decode the exact message. The human body serves as a highly advanced acoustic compressor and transmitter, but the mouth alone isn't enough. To carry for miles, the island itself must act as the amplifier. The ravine walls of La Gomera are composed of dense volcanic basalt. This rock has an incredibly high acoustic impedance, meaning it absorbs almost nothing. When a high-pitched whistle hits these cliffs, nearly 100% of the sound energy reflects right off the surface. As we can see in this 3D model, the V-shape of the valley triggers a phenomenon called geometric focusing. The angled walls force the bouncing sound waves inward toward a central axis, actively amplifying the beam of sound as it travels forward. Above the valley, the local trade winds create a temperature inversion layer. This layer acts like a heavy meteorological lid. Instead of escaping upward into the atmosphere, the high-frequency sound is trapped and forced to hug the contours of the earth. Between the force of human lungs, the basaltic mirrors of the ravines, and the atmospheric ceiling, an unamplified human whistle can effectively span a 10-kilometer radius. If you visit La Gomera today and hear this sound echoing across a valley, your brain will likely perceive it as a bird call or just arbitrary high-pitched noise. But neuroimaging studies reveal something entirely different for a fluent silbador. When a trained whistler hears this sound, their brain bypasses standard auditory processing. The signal routes directly to the left temporal lobe, the exact same neural center used to process spoken Spanish. To the shepherd standing on the opposite ridge, it isn't a whistle at all. Their brain hears a perfectly articulated, grammatically complete human voice. For centuries, this biological network sustained life on the island. Then, in the 1990s, mobile cellular technology arrived, presenting an immediate existential threat to the ancient system. Almost overnight, the cell phone rendered the functional utility of the whistle obsolete. You no longer needed to bounce sound waves off volcanic rock to warn a neighbor or coordinate a harvest. You could simply dial a number. At the exact same time, La Gomera's economy was shifting from agriculture toward tourism. Whistling began to carry a heavy social stigma. For many families, it became an embarrassing marker of rural poverty. A silent generation of islanders grew up understanding the language, but completely refusing to speak it. By the late 1980s, the massive acoustic network of the barrancos had finally gone quiet. The very technology designed to connect the modern world had systematically erased the island's unique acoustic soul. But letting the whistle die meant severing a deep psychological link to the landscape and the ancestors who survived it. In the late 1990s, the Gomeran community organized a massive cultural awakening. They pushed for aggressive legislation. In 1999, a government mandate integrated Silbo Gomero directly into the primary school curriculum. Every child on the island now learns how to speak with the wind. The global community eventually recognized the weight of this effort. In 2009, UNESCO officially added the language to the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Proud, conclusive tone. Silbo Gomero outlived its original purpose as a survival tool. Today, it stands as a living act of rebellion, a promise that no matter how digital the world becomes, the wind in La Gomera will never lose its vocabulary.